Hello YouTube. Today I wanted to make a video about the Somali alphabet and just kind of the Somali script in general. Somali, first of all, is an Afro-Asiatic language which is similar to that of Arabic. Arabic is a Semitic language. If you go one step higher in the language, like groups or families, you have Afro-Asiatic. Both Somali and Arabic fit into Afro-Asiatic. And they both have some similar sounds just because they're related. And then Somali also has been greatly influenced by Arabic, being that Somalia is very close to Arabia. Yemen and Somalia are very close together. I've met lots of half Somalis and half Yemenis, and Somali takes a lot of Yemeni words and different stuff. So they influence each other. So I'm gonna show you the Somali alphabet, the script, the alphabet, what each sound is like, and a lot of these sounds, even though they use the Latin script, the Roman script, for Somali, there's oftentimes very different sounds than any European language, and come from Arabic. Usually they're very similar to Arabic ones. So also give an Arabic equivalent of the same sound, so maybe you can better understand the sound. And also I want to talk a little bit about how the Somali script came to be. Why does this language randomly have a Latin, like Roman alphabet? So briefly, if you look at Somali history, in Somalia, in ancient times, it was a big civilization called Puntland. It was very sophisticated. There's still ancient ruins there today. The civilization traded often big time, like traded lots of stuff, a lot of the time, with ancient Egypt. You know, the pyramids and all that type of stuff, and the mummies, you know. They traded a lot, and the reason we know about it is mostly from Egyptian records, and also the ruins and stuff that's left in Somalia today. Now, Somali had its own ancient script that to this day remains undeciphered, because Somali has changed so much over the thousands of years that they're not sure which letter correlates with which sound. But it definitely was like an alphabet. It wasn't like a pictograph or ideograph type thing. It wasn't, you know, like, it wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? Hieroglyphics or nothing like that. It was like a real alphabet, but they just don't know what correlates to what. And then, due to like foreign trade and conquer and different stuff, the civilization it collapsed. And back then in ancient times, there was only a select few scribes, where that was their profession, to read and write. So most people didn't know how to read and write, so that script died out in common use. Then, after that, there was some Somali scholars, like Muslim scholars, after Islam spread to Somalia, who used the Arabic script for Somali. So Somali started being used written in the Arabic script. And then later on there were some Somali linguists who tried to reuse the ancient alphabet and kind of revive that. So I'll show you a picture of that, what it kind of looked like. And that lasted for a little bit, and that type of thing didn't really catch on. And the Arabic script it stood kind of firm for a while. But then once Somalia had its new government, here in the 1900s, it had that, I can't remember which government it was. I think it was its communist government that it had for a while. They just decided randomly, they're like, okay, if we're going to have a written language, let's do it the cheapest way possible. And since it was easiest to buy printers with the Roman script, they simply decided to pick the Roman script, just because it was cheaper to print with. So, I mean, that's what happened. That's how they got the script they have today. So you had some Somali linguists, influenced by a British linguist who knew Somali very well and traveled Somalia very well. And so it was kind of like some Somali linguists got together, took influences from different places, and they used the Roman alphabet to create the Somali writing system. And then after it was created and stuff, then the government would send out people to teach it to the everyday Somali people. And it was like the biggest mass spread of literacy at one time in the history of human beings. It was the fastest growth of literacy anywhere in the world. It was during this time when this script was first created. So, to introduce the Somali alphabet, you have the letter A. You have the letter Ba. Then you have A, which is very, very similar to the Arabic Ain. So, this C, or this A, it's vowel-less, but it shows the kind of sound you make in your throat with your epiglottis. So it could be A, O, E. It's just kind of that sound. And then you have Da, and then you have this sounds, I think, exclusive to Somali. It's like a Da, 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 Da. And then you have E. You have Fa, you have Ga, you have Ha, you have I, you have Ja, you have Ka, and then you have Kha, which has an Arabic equivalent, Kha. You have the La, you have Ma, you have Na, you have O, you have Qa, this also has an Arabic equivalent, Qa, you have Ra, you have Sa, you have Sha, you have Ta, you have U, Wa, and you have, this one has Arabic equivalent as well, you have Ha, which is expressed by the X in Somali. It's actually a very hard H sound. It's like Ha. Then you have Ya, and then you have what's called the Hamza. Now the Hamza is also in Arabic too, and it's called the same thing, Hamza. Now in the Somali alphabet it's expressed with an apostrophe, but what it is it's a glottal stop. So you could be in English, if we say uh-oh, you can hear it uh-oh, that thing kind of in between uh-oh. That's your epiglottis is closing over the airways. That's called a glottal stop. So that's expressed by an apostrophe or a hamza in the Arabic language. So an Arabic word with the hamza is ba'as. So Somali has that too. So the Somali alphabet, I think, is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Everything is spelled the way it sounds. It's not like some other, maybe like English, for instance, information. Where's the SH? That's because it's not originally an English word. English has a lot of spelling inconsistencies. But in Somali, they just spell everything exactly how it is. And I'm going to go get a Somali newspaper and read a little bit from it so you can kind of see how straightforward it is. So here's a headline. Let's see if you can see that. So it says Isman Ato or Shagay in Shabka Loga Bahan Yahi in Ka'don Isaga Dul Qadan Dul Qadan Gumesiga, which means Isman Ato. He said that the people, the society, need to do a revolution to take out the colonizers. I can read you some more too, just kind of, you can see how straightforward it is. Daulada KMG Somalia Io AMI SOM O Logo Deke Diarado Dagal. I mean, it's straightforward. There's never a confusing thing, or things are never pronounced different than they actually are. Here's another one. You have Bananbah Ka Dan Mahiga o Ka Da'i or Da'i Dalka Denmark. So basically saying a protest happened in Denmark. But yeah, I mean, the Somali script is it's very easy, and I mean, it's really straightforward. Can't get any simpler. I mean, it's the easiest script I've ever had to learn. I mean, it's very easy. It's maybe Swahili, maybe it might be a little bit close to how easy Somali is, but Somali is the easiest I've ever encountered when it comes to the writing system. Very, very easy. And I think the language is a very, very interesting language. Yeah, so this is a Somali newspaper, and this is actually published right here in Minneapolis, because there's so many. I mean, Minneapolis, where I live here in Minnesota, it's the largest population of Somalis outside of Africa. So I mean, I get lots of practice, lots of people to talk to. I used to work at a Somali mall. In fact, in my newspaper is my old employer. So, I mean, that's right in Carmel Mall, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah, it's called Suqa Carmel, which means Carmel Market. And Carmel is a name. So there's lots of Somalis here. Somali culture is very prevalent, and it's very easy to get Somali clothes. Right now I'm wearing it's called the Somali ma'awis. Ma'awis is actually an Arabic loanword that they took, but it's also known as, I think, a sarang, like in Indonesian. Maybe you can see. It's kind of like a skirt type thing. But yeah, there's definitely lots of Somalis here, and most Somalis that came here came as refugees because their country is in civil war right now. And you get a lot that they traveled around before they actually got here. So I have a guy, one of my friends, his name is Fatah. He's a Somali guy, and he grew up in Pakistan. So he grew up knowing both Urdu and Somali. And then his parents moved here for a little bit, so he learned English pretty good. And now he's living in Europe, in Hungary. So he knows some Hungarian, a little bit of German too. Somalis, actually most of them a lot of them are quite multilingual. Somalia has been colonized many times, so they have different European languages that a lot of them are kind of familiar with, like French or Italian, and some English too, because England had a spot there. So they have some English loanwords, they have some German loanwords in their language, some Italian words, they get some Swahili words. I mean, their language is kind of somewhat a hodgepodge to it too. So they get a lot of Arabic words. Sometimes it might be the same pronunciation as an Arabic word, but a slightly different meaning to it. But it's a very interesting language, and I think anybody who's definitely interested in language or linguistics should at least give it a glance. Definitely take a look at it. It's a really fun language, I think. The grammar is real interesting. It's really cool. And then I also wanted to show the resources I'm using to learn Somali. So I have this book. This is the one I was looking at for the alphabet to make sure I was on track. I wasn't forgetting any letters. It's Somali, English Somali Dictionary Phrase Book. I got this at like a Barnes and Noble for like $4. And then these books might be harder to find. But since there's so many Somalis here, they sell that you can find these books here like easy. But on the internet or in any other bookstores might be kind of difficult. But this book is an English Somali grammar book, and it's actually designed for Somalis to learn English. But I'm using it the other way around, and I'm using it to learn Somali. But I mean, like, most all of it's in Somali, like Bugan o Kakoban in Kabadan. You know, just random stuff in here. So yeah, it's really good for grammar. I mean, this is definitely a very helpful book, helpful for learning different phrases, grammar, lots of vocabulary in here. And then I also have this big blue Advanced English Somali Dictionary, first edition. Sosarki Kowad. So this is actually the biggest English Somali dictionary ever made. It's the biggest in circulation. It's the biggest English Somali dictionary. It's designed for people who actually have a foundation in Somali first, and it's actually catered more to Somalis, a native Somali speaker. Still give an English word, and sometimes it won't give a direct translation, but give a big long explanation in Somali. So you kind of have to have a little bit of a grounding in Somali before you can really get a lot out of the book. That's really all I have for books right now for Somali. I plan on getting more dictionaries that are just kind of real direct translations for people trying to learn Somali. But where I get a lot of my practice and how I figured out my pronunciation, even though I still have a very considerable accent in the language, is just talking to people. There's a lot of Somalis here. I've just, through interaction with a lot of people, and especially when I used to work at the Somali Mall, I heard the language every day, and I could practice it every day. Setahe, wafi'antahe, malin wanagsan, habin wanagsan, sabah wanagsan. Just saying little stuff every now and then, Ramadan wanagsan, just different stuff, and you learn different words. Like, I used to work in a hafiz. I used to work in an office. And sometimes in the hafiz, we would get some doli. We'd get some mice. Or mouse. Doli. So, it's definitely a really cool language, though. And it's definitely one I would encourage people to at least look at and try. Because it's definitely a cool language. But I think if you have a grounding in like Arabic or Hebrew or another maybe Semitic or Afro-Asiatic language like Amharic or Oromo or something like that, Somali it's not gonna be that difficult because it has lots of similarities. The grammar is pretty interesting, and it's not too far out there compared to Arabic. You can still see some similarities and stuff, and the consonants are still kind of a big deal when it comes to grammar. And I mean, it's cool. And you can see lots of, like, Oromo is probably the closest language to Somali. So I would talk to some Ethiopians or people from Oromia and stuff, and they would share words that they have like in common or that are very similar to Somali. Like the word for milk in Somali is ano. I don't remember what it was in Oromo, but an Oromo guy told me what the word is for milk in Oromo, and it was like almost the same thing. Very, very similar. And I've also met a guy from Djibouti. That's a country right in the north of Somalia. It used to be part of Somalia, but they speak kind of like a dialect of Somali. That's pretty interesting too. So I've heard some of that, and I mean it's pretty fun. Here, because there's so many Somalis, you actually find a lot of non-Somalis who know some Somali. I have lots of white friends who are married to Somalis, and because of that they learn some Somali too. So us white boys, us Adan guys will be sitting together speaking Somali. But it's definitely a language worthwhile, definitely. So I recommend you check it out sometime when you get the chance. Alright, goodbye YouTube.